Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. I'm going to share some standout details to look out for to begin with, then on screen the event chart right at the start of the week, which provides an important backdrop for the whole 7 days. Then I'll go through each of the key influences frame by frame to give you a really clear picture of what we can all collectively expect before going through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. If you're new here, this is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please help it thrive by clicking or tapping the subscription button, but also the bell notification signal too. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, I am a consulting astrologer. Please check out my testimonials below. I also have a new service for astrology video readings. Please see below about those too. If you'd like to take advantage of my unique special offer of 30% off, you can order your Life Roadmap Report, the most serenely informative document any of us can ever read, because it's all about us, each one totally individual for the person it's produced for. But it helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our lives so far. But with the 12-month forecast that comes with it, we can then plan our moves over the next year and time them as astutely as possible. Please see the link below for more. Now, this is an incredibly powerful week because the Sun will combine with Neptune in Pisces for the last time in 164 years. It's not going to happen again, therefore, in any of our lifetimes. The extra significance, of course, is Neptune is the co-regent of the sign of Pisces. It's the modern ruler. It's a very shimmering energy. It can be inspirational. It can help us to really trip the light fantastic. But Neptune can also distort and confuse. The alliance with the Sun can make us hypersensitive at the start of this week, but perhaps also feel completely disorientated. And also because we still have Venus and Mercury in a retrograde. What's the significance of that? I'll unpack that for you. But then on Thursday, we have the most important event of each year. We have the start of the Western tropical year with the spring equinox. The Sun moves into the sign of Aries. The process of recreation and life begins all over. This also ushers in Cardinal Quadrant 1, which lasts for the following 13 weeks. But the Sun is pretty close to Venus, despite its retrograde. What's the implications of that? Also, as the week comes to a close, the mighty but the tiny Pluto is going to be impacting on both Venus and Mercury, but perhaps most critically also on the Sun as well. I'll unpack all of that for you, but on the screen now is the event chart right at the start of the week. And you can see the Sun there is actually only 1 degree away from the North Node. So that conjunction hasn't happened for about 17 years. But Saturn is still very much in the mix. So that posse of Pisces players is very complex. But look at the position of the moon. It's in the sign of balance, which is Libra. But that forges a quincunx at the start of this week to those energies in the sign of Pisces. And because the moon in the sign of Libra is very much about balance, if our emotional or spiritual or psychological worlds are feeling unsettled, bogged down, or we just don't have much vitality, it's much harder to connect to other people in a particularly positive way. And of course, Venus and Mercury, the two planets of Venus relating as well as money, but Mercury the intermediary, the messenger, but also the planet of communication, that is in retrograde too. But they are pretty close together, and that can have some benefits. I'm now going to go through the big influences of this week frame by frame. So that start of the week with the moon in that odd angle and in conjunction a quincunx, it's hard to get integration. And if we think about the overall zodiac, the position of the planets in the sign of Pisces is all about endings. It's all about culmination. Saturn's going through a big journey in the sky itself. In a year's time, it will be in Aries for the foreseeable future. Of course, it's going to move into Aries on the 26th of May, and at the end of this month, Neptune moves into Aries too. But this week could see us needing to engage with reflection, potentially low vitality, but also we may be considering the outcome of certain decisions we've made in the past, because Saturn is very much a planet of consequences. It's about fate, but it's also about timing. And because its journey through the sky takes a total of 29.5 years, it's getting to the end of that circuit in Pisces. But Pisces is also the sum of all the other planetary players. It has great wisdom, great sensitivity, but it can at times also be somewhat confused. It can find structures challenging, which Saturn obviously demands. So anything to do with our physical and emotional and mental health is still going to be hugely impacted by last week's potent total lunar eclipse. So whatever decisions we've made in the past, we're going to need to face up to the outcome this week in particular. But as I mentioned, on Thursday we have a potentially joyous event. When the sun moves back into the sign of Aries, it begins the new Western tropical astrological year, but with the spring equinox, and that starts the whole process. Essentially, zodiac means zodiac, precision of the animals, and it begins with the ram, and the ram has a huge appetite for life. It's a fire sign. It's about initiation, whereas Pisces is watery. It's also mutable, whereas the sign of Aries is cardinal. It's all about action. It is about leadership. So even if we start this week feeling really out of sorts, unsure as what we should do, there may be some situations in our lives that are profoundly ending, or other situations where we just feel uncertain as to how they're going to play out. By Thursday, we get that rush of energy, which is going to be so exciting. But each cardinal quadrant which comes in on the Earth points, as we have the spring equinox, the summer solstice, the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice, that brings in the cardinal signs each time. For the next 13 weeks, that rush of feisty Aries energy is to the fore. But as the sun returns, it's very close to the retreating Venus. Now, we know Venus is a detrimented player in the sign of Aries, and we know it's in retrograde. So it's saying to us we can't be too impetuous in terms of some of the decisions we make, and particularly around our romantic world. But because of the angle between the Sun, Venus, and more broadly Mercury and Pluto in the logical detached sign of Aquarius, that's very much about our future plan. It's very much about how we're all connected, how we can all work together to forge a better alliance that works for us. So even if we do discover at the start of the week that some people are not as loyal, they're the more fair weather friends, or there's some situations that are profoundly disappointing or haven't been portrayed as they truly are, by the end of the week I feel that we are going to reinvigorate ourselves. It may not be completely perfect because Saturn and Neptune still will be in the 12th solar sign of Pisces, but we get an opportunity to get on that front foot and grapple with an exciting new period of the year. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. Welcome Aries to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. The sun roars into your sign on Thursday, and with it is going to bring a wave of energy and drive. It's also linked into Venus pretty closely. If there is a relationship you've been grappling with recently, it's certainly going to give you a greater sense of determination to head it in the direction you want. But the collective in the sign of Pisces is complex, particularly at the start of this week. And if you have been feeling a little bit low in vitality or spirits, that might be emphasized at the start of the week. And of course, because Venus and Mercury are very close together, that gives you a lot of personal magnetism, but because of the retrograde, you may need to rethink and reset certain situations and involvements. Later in the week, however, Aries, the link of the sun to the mighty Pluto is really something to behold. Pluto's in the part of your situation to do with your connections, but also to do with your highest hopes. And with the sun moving into your sign, it's going to embolden you. If you have gone through a period of uncertainty or even upset, if there has been a separation, if you have found out that someone hasn't been very trustworthy, you do get a chance at least, even if the reality of that is quite daunting, you have an opportunity to take a firmer grip on your life direction. So you may find yourself quite quickly this week going through two very different sets of energies. But however you do feel at the start of the week, whether your imagination is awesome, you're having incredibly powerful dreams, or you're tripping the light fantastic with your creative talents, later in the week, it's all about your personality power and your absolute best when you want to start something new or inject an ongoing strand with greater passion. And that's what's coming for you later this week. Welcome Taurus to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. Making plans is a big part of what inspires us. We're working towards something that gives us a sense of hope and optimism. And a very special set of influences at the start of this week can arouse within you your more idealistic expectations. But then there could be something that happens from the time of the spring equinox, which makes you much more conscious that some of those hopes could be conflicted by some other demands, some of which could be deeply personal and may be around some kind of relationship, or maybe it's your relationship with yourself. Because however much we make those plans, unfortunately, life can sometimes get in the way with sudden demands, sudden expectations, and perhaps there is going to be a shift of focus really quite quickly from the start of this week through to the end. And it may be, Taurus, around your work, but it may also be triggered in some ways by your deeper instincts. Because however much we hope to do something, however much we'd like to align with certain people, we can't control the whole process. And with your ruler Venus in retrograde, the potential for something to slow down or not quite work as you hoped is going to be increased. So the more psychological part of your situation really becomes a lot more important. And that could include some of your fears or personal doubts. And those can become much more activated by the end of this week. But you still have an opportunity even within that, because the outlet for any options you have is to listen to your sixth sense, because if you do, that will guide you to make the best choices. But unfortunately, you could become more aware of perhaps someone or a group of people that are not quite fitting your expectations as you had hoped, And it's about getting to grips with that quickly, and you can do that even as soon as the end of the week. Welcome Gemini to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. This week begins with a hypersensitive conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. If you work in an environment where you can be creative, you could find yourself in top form, absolutely inspired and very productive. If, however, you work in a much more practical environment, if the energy or atmosphere there isn't great, or the relationships with colleagues is a little strained, you can become much more aware of that this week. Not least, your ruler Mercury, along with the relator Venus, are in retrograde. So if you want to think about your long-term plan and you don't feel that you're in the right professional situation, the Sun's arrival into Aries on Thursday gives you a chance to think long term. But I would just say that by the end of March, Mercury, your ruler, is going to keep winding backwards and connect with the rather bleary energy of Neptune. So as this month comes to a close, there could be a real sense of uncertainty. But keep the faith. As much as retrogrades can create challenges, snags and glitches, they can also push us to rethink when things aren't as they should be, and through that process we actually get to a strategy that works for us. So essentially the Sun for you moving into Aries is asking you to plan ahead. And even if you're facing some immediate headwinds, or your social situation seems a little changeable, or people aren't seeming to be particularly reliable, just know this will pass. But the main thing is that you're in charge of what you want to achieve in terms of your big picture of your life. And Pluto, the planet of transformation, forges a sensational link with your ruler at the end of this week, but also with Venus and also with the Sun. And the people you do feel you can connect to, you do have a simpatico with, they're the people who are going to come through for you this week. And if there are some people who are less reliable or who are not for the longer term, just know you're going through a process of preparation that will start to come back to you in the middle of April when Mercury returns to your sign. And then you can seize the moment and see some of your hopes that are germinating now actually come to pass. Welcome Cancer to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. The week begins and you may find yourself thinking about where you could be other than where you are. If that sounds rather cryptic, what I mean is if you'd rather be sunning yourself on some hot beach or exploring a nature reserve or doing something completely different from the worldly demands that so many of us have to grapple with, it really wouldn't be a surprise. Therefore, it's the perfect time to book a holiday. But you may be saying, but what about Mercury retrograde, Patrick? Well, true, you need to make sure the detail of what you do is all nailed down, but it's your imagination that's going to be so vivid. And if you do feel somewhat penned in by worldly demands, the arrival of the Sun to the pinnacle of your solar chart on Thursday is certainly going to ask some questions of what you're going to do in terms of goals and ambitions over the following 4 weeks. But laying in wait is the retreating Venus, but also Mercury's in retrograde too. So for some crabs, this could be a time when you decide that feeling of enclosement and limitation may see you want to break out and do something completely and utterly different. So it doesn't matter what your goals and ambitions are, if they feel thwarted, don't be fearful of making a change, because being open to change is very life affirming. It gives us a sense that we're not without options and possibilities. But if you don't feel that you have many options, that sense of responsibility and the practical side of life could pulverize your passion a little bit this week. If on the other hand you're in a role that you're not enjoying, but you have thought before about what you could do for yourself, particularly professionally. For some Cancerians, the next 4 weeks can be hugely exciting when you may set some new goals and ambitions, but ones that are very much to do with being more entrepreneurial, more risk-taking, but also bolder too. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer, or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off, you can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Welcome Leo to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. The week begins with the Sun applying to Neptune for the last time in the sign of Pisces for 164 years. There's a thing. But if you're trying to make sense of a romantic relationship that seems rather confusing and oblique, that actually is quite a challenging influence. It may seem that the other person is rather mysterious but also unavailable, and if you're discussing long-term finances, that too can be an area of uncertainty. But then the Sun bursts into your sister fire sign of Aries, beginning the start of the new Western tropical astrological year on Thursday. And that's really good for you because the Sun in the sign of Aries, and the Sun is your ruler, is exalted there. In a way, that elemental shift can push you to seize control of your situation. But it could also push you to liberate yourself from something that isn't working. Mercury, of course, is in Aries in retrograde, Venus too, but it's the role of Pluto in your sector of relating that I think is really significant. Pluto's going to connect to all of them, Mercury, Venus and the Sun, in a way which can help you to cut through the mist and try to get to what's really right for you. And whether you want a temporary break or you want to do something completely spontaneous or book a holiday, I know with Mercury retrograde that would seem a risky thing to do. But remember, we can't stop everything for Mercury retrogrades. What we can do is revisit our previous plan and amend it and make sure that anything we do it very precisely to mitigate the potential for glitches. So this could actually be a very exciting week by the end of it if you're prepared to go with the flow and just accept that sometimes in life we do need to be open to change. And being a fixed sign, that is something that you can be a little bit resistant to. So if you find yourself rethinking something, replanning something, getting some new information from a different source, and it's different to what had been in the mix before, just go with it. Don't judge it. It's probably because at an instinctive level, you know you need the furnace of that fiery energy in Aries to break free of something which is too cloying, too confusing, and too draining for your morale. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer, or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off, you can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Welcome Virgo to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. If you cast your mind back to 2012, when Neptune, the planet of dreams, first moved into your sector of relating. Think of all the experiences you've encountered since then when it comes to your connections to others. There may have been some very profound ones. There could have been some shimmering romantic experiences and also some profound disappointments. Just depends on each person's unique experience. But as the Sun applies to Neptune for one final time in our lifetimes, it's that incredibly powerful. At the very start of this week, it is a good moment to reflect on all those experiences, because for good or bad, they will have given you a lot more experience. But the gathering of energy in the sign of Aries, which is supplemented by the Sun on Thursday with the spring equinox, does see your ruler Mercury in retrograde, and also the planet of relating and money, Venus. What does it mean? Well, I feel the best way to decipher the shifts and the shimmering energy that plays out this week is to be aware of the value of Pluto. Pluto's got a mighty reputation for a tiny entity. It's about change, but it's also about transformation. And ironically, Pluto's asking you to fall back on one of your great gifts, and that's for analysis, to get underneath the surface and try to understand what's really meant and what's really being said. Because you could get some mixed signals at the start of this week. In fact, in a relationship context, unfortunately, some Virgo people may experience someone who's very tricky and not very honest at all. But the energy in the 8th house is about very profound change. But it does mean grappling with the things that sometimes we're a bit reluctant to look at, or even consider that change is part of the process of life. So whether it's around a business partnership, whether it's around friendships, connections in your family, or in a romantic context, don't take things at face value this week. It's all about getting beneath the surface and really taking into yourself your great talent for really analysing things carefully, and most of all, not necessarily being deflected by what people are telling you, but by making your own decisions with a combination of the facts, but also based on your instincts. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off. You can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Welcome Libra to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of March. Even if you're someone who likes to keep your routines very ordered and efficient, and you like to fulfill all your obligations, the Sun's connection to Neptune in the first half of this week suggests that even if you're willing, your body may not be. So your physical vitality could be lower. But also, someone else can just expect something more from you and push another obligation in your direction. The good news is that whilst your ruler Venus and Mercury's retrograde in your opposite sign could be seeing you rethinking certain relationships, and not just of a romantic kind, the Sun's arrival in Aries on the spring equinox on Thursday gives you a chance to be more passionate in standing your ground. And the tiny but powerful and influential energies of Pluto apply not just to the Sun but also your ruler in the second half of this week. And if someone has seemed to have found it difficult to hear where you're coming from, the furnace of energy that comes from the Sun in the 7th house of Aries, which is a fire sign, would just give you that much more vigor to get your point across. But it is also the case that if you are feeling lower in energy, if you do have an opportunity to perhaps spin out, do something else, do something more for you that's more healing, more restorative, like go for a massage or go for a spa day, your timing will be impeccable. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off. You can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Scorpio, your week commencing the 17th of March forecast has seen Mercury, the planet of precision, go into a retrograde in a very practical part of your chart. Over the next few weeks, there could be some areas that will require your specific attention. But right at the start of this week, the Sun merges with Neptune in your sister water sign of Pisces for the last time in our lifetimes. This won't happen again for 164 years. And for you, this can be very inspirational, particularly if you're a creative person, or perhaps there's someone you're drawn to at the moment who really just creates a sense of romance and bliss. But that practical energy of Mercury is going to become stronger. And also Venus in your 6th house is retrograde too. So how do you work with this, particularly as the Sun arrives there on Thursday too? Well, I think it is going to be important to try to marry the two areas. If there is something or someone that's exciting you, it's also going to be important to work on that situation in a very earthy, practical way. If you can blend the two areas together, you can overcome the retrogrades. But as ever, retrogrades can create snags. And there may be something around your domestic situation, for example, that could benefit from some fresh energy. So the Sun moving into Aries can give you that thrust. Now, whether it is something that's been a bit stuck, or a do-it-yourself task that's been delayed, or a health appointment you've been putting off due to being very busy, the Sun moving to join the retreating Mercury and Venus, but all three of them blending with your modern ruler of Pluto towards the end of this week can just give you the celestial assets to take action to resolve anything which isn't working in quite as ordered way as possible. But if you can bring that precision to something you really feel excited and passionate about, you're certainly making the most of this week's influences. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off, you can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Sagittarius, your week commencing the 17th of March forecast sees the Sun combine with the delicate energies of Neptune. When it comes to your home, emotional and family situation, you could feel very, very tender. But you know, you have a reputation for being larger than life, very witty and very jovial. And once the Sun moves on from the rather emotional energies of Neptune on Thursday with the spring equinox, it's like a furnace of enthusiasm can come into your very being. Now, Mercury, the planet of communication, but also Venus, the planet of relating, lay in wait, but of course they're in retrograde. If there is some confusion around your social situation or a love relationship, or you have a creative venture that feels rather frustrating and isn't flowing as you would like, the arrival of the sun really can be very positive indeed. So in the first half of this week, if you do feel deflated or it feels that things are very challenging, do know that once the sun moves, we have the spring equinox, and also by Friday, the sun is linking so powerfully to Pluto in your sector of everyday communication. Despite the fact that Mercury's retrograde, Venus too, if you've got something to say that's really important to you, you can punch it across with real vigor and passion, and also inspire people by the end of the week. So don't feel that the Mercury and Venus retrogrades can only bring mischief. Yes, they could require you to reset, but I feel the real challenge of this week is to accept that just like everyone else, you can be a much more emotional being. And if that is something that you've been finding difficult to integrate into your situation over the last couple of years, as Saturn has made its way through your sector of feelings, that could be more challenging. But if you're just open to flex into the fact that you, like everyone else, does have those moments of vulnerability, by the end of this week, you're going to be on much more sparkling form again. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off, you can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Capricorn, your week commencing the 17th of March forecast is really quite intriguing. You're one of the zodiac's most pragmatic signs, but at the moment, anything to do with your emotional world, how you feel, the family, around where you live, who you live there with, and how is going to be very much to the fore. But if you recall, late last week, Mercury, the planet of communication, went into a retrograde. So as you come into this week, the sun's shimmering conjunction with the planet of sensitivity, Neptune, which can create confusion, means that if you're exchanging messages or emails, how you perceive them or how someone perceives what you say may not necessarily be how they were meant. And part of that is that Mercury retrograde, which can in some ways skew everyone's perceptions. But on Thursday, the sun powers into the sign of Aries, joining up with Mercury, the thinker, the communicator, and Venus, the relator, but also Chiron, very much to do with where we feel quite tender. And the sun brings with it a connection to Pluto. Pluto is very much about transformation, but it's pushing you to be mindful of your values, particularly around money. So if you are discussing something around the household budget, or perhaps pushing forwards with a plan to buy or rent a property, Pluto and the sun give you a push of airy energy from Pluto and fire from the sun in Aries. So despite the fact that Mercury and Venus could see you be rethinking something, and there is the potential for some misunderstandings, by the end of this week, I feel that you can be cutting through that and gaining traction for what's important to you. If you'd like to work with me direct, for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading. Or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off. You can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. Aquarius, your week commencing the 17th of March forecast, saw late last week Mercury, the communicator, the messenger, go into a retrograde in the part of your chart to do with short journeys, technology, and anything to do with fast messaging, which is a big part of modern life. So for sure, through to the end of the month, it is going to be important to think and pause before you press send. But you know, even though Mercury is retrograde, along with Venus in the passionate sign of Aries, they do have benefits. And those benefits are to think again about something that had been in play that maybe you want to change. And the Sun arriving in Aries on Thursday will bring a huge rush of fiery energy, which will help to ignite your thinking and the way you relate to people. And the Sun, Mercury and Venus are all going to be blessed by the power of the tiny but influential Pluto in your sign. Pluto's about change, but it is about determination, and it can be about leverage. But in positive angles, like this one, a sextile, it helps us to come across with conviction, with persuasion, with power. So your message, despite the fact that Mercury and Venus are retrograde, can actually seem all the more enriched by this combination of energies. It just may mean that you're going over something that had been expressed before, perhaps reconnecting with someone. It could be that an idea you have is being revised in some way, but by the end of the week you could be absolutely thrilled about how your message is being perceived. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off. You can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more. So Pisces, your week commencing the 17th of March forecast is particularly evocative. I want you to think back to 2012. Neptune, your modern ruler, came into your sign for the second time, and since then it's been encouraging you to maximize your creative and imaginative talents, which can be quite exquisite. Now this week the Sun is applying in a conjunction to Neptune for the very last time in any of our lifetimes. That's because Neptune's about to move into Aries on the 30th of March, but it will come back into your sign on the 10th of December. But by the time the Sun moves through Pisces next year, Neptune will be back in Aries. And that therefore makes this a particularly special week. So at the start of this week, if you feel that your talent isn't getting a return in a practical way, particularly with Mercury, the planet of commerce and communication, retrograde in your second house of money, and Venus, the money planet, retrograde in your second house of money, it would be totally understandable. But the Sun hustles and bustles into that sector on Thursday. We have the spring equinox. The Sun loves being in Aries. It's exalted there. But Mercury, Venus and the Sun are all going to link back to the planet of consequences and outcomes of Pluto. Pluto is a very psychological influence. It's moved for the long term on the 19th of November last year into an area which is going to be very vivid and very powerful for you right through to 2043 when he first moves into your sign. But he's going to ask you to dig down deep into your resources. And as this week comes to a close, even if you don't get immediate good financial news, I feel that what you can start to do is make the connections within yourself about your self-worth. And the more that you set your intentions about how valuable you are, the sooner that money will come to you. But when it comes to that part of you that can be just so perceptive, you know, you can walk into a room, soak up the atmosphere and work out all the dynamics in such an incredibly perceptive way. And that part of your nature is really enriched this week. So if the physical side of things don't look very promising to begin with this week because of those retrogrades, do be assured by the end of the week things will start to travel in a much more practical way and tangible way, very much in your favourable direction. If you'd like to work with me direct for a one-to-one reading, I am a consulting astrologer. Or you can have a astrology video reading, or please check out my very special combination package of written reports. You can get your life roadmap report, the most important document any of us can ever read, totally unique to you, which will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but with the 12-month transit that comes with that for 30% off, you can time your moves over the next year in the most perceptive of ways. Please see below for more.